Hey everyone. Okay, so you know what? Let's just jump right into this episode because, yeah, what else is there to really start with other than how the episode ended? Because the episode basically, this is the episode where Jaygarcia enters the fray and arrives on the scene as this monstrous, like, spider with ox horns kind of form, which in itself somewhat answers the question of what exactly Sabo saw when he confronted Emu for the first time all the way back at the Levelly, but also gives us an idea of what the other forms of the other elders are because when you look at Jaygarcia's Devilfruit demon form, it bears a close resemblance to a Gyuki, a yokai from Japanese folklore that has the head of an ox and the body of a spider. So if this is the inspiration we're pulling from, we can pretty much deduce a couple of the others forms as well from their silhouettes, but I'm not going to say anything on that note because why ruin the fun, and it's just more fun to kind of in order to talk about that when it actually happens. And yeah, as far as the design and bringing the form itself to life in the anime, I'm not going to spend too much more time other than say it pretty much exceeded my expectations in every measure. And if you were to ask me what I envisioned Jaygarcia's demon form to look like in the anime, this is pretty much it, more or less, and pretty much it, and more if anything else. And yeah, one thing I liked above all else with this reveal is how it was built up. Because if you've seen any of my anime reviews on One Piece, you know I've talked numerous times in the past about how the pacing can sometimes dilute can sometimes like crunch dilute a reveal. Like a massive heavy reveal gets diluted by the fact that the pacing is maybe a little too slow or something like that. But here, I will say that it is used quite effectively in the sense where in the midst of all the chaos, it would continuously cut back and forth to Jaygarcia as a way of building up to him as this looming, approaching threat. So when shit finally did hit the fan and that demonic symbol appeared, signaling his arrival, and even just his words of saying, "Pacifistas, I order you to stand down," like it made his appearance all the more terrifying. And this is a case where the anime did outdo the manga in terms of just pure presence of the character's introduction on Egghead, in my opinion. Like, everything about Jaygarcia's, like, introduction to Egghead, it was handled amazingly, in my opinion. With that said, one thing that's been emphasized throughout this arc, but especially in this episode, is that with Bonney attacking Saturn, especially with Bonney attacking Saturn, is that it's not just the fact that the pacifistas look like Kuma. Something about that in itself is deeply traumatizing to Bonney, and the fact that you can see that reach its peak in this episode upon coming face to face with Jaygarcia. You see little flashes and glimpses of what Bonney saw in Kuma's memories, and like the pieces are all starting to come together. Even though her anger, even though Bonnie's anger was more directed at Vegapunk when it came to the act itself of turning Kuma into a machine, the one who does have the more overarching presence in her life, the source of all her fears, all her trauma, her anger, and for just what happened to Kuma in general, is Jaygarcia. Like everything that is responsible for what has happened to Kuma in his life, it is because of Jaygarcia. But at least now that she's learned the truth of Kuma's past, and at least that's how you can interpret it now that she has learned the truth of Kuma's past, which in itself begs the question, just what did she learn though? And oh boy, this is where the true fun of Egghead begins, as honestly, the next couple episodes, in my opinion, are some of the most inspired bits of backstory writing Oda has ever done. Like, it's one of those things that made me realize what an incredible choice it was Oda made by keeping a lot of what we knew about Kuma extremely vague and limited in scope, because whether intentionally or not, it allowed him to go absolutely buck wild with what's about to happen next. Now, unfortunately, what's happened next, we're going to have to wait for 2 weeks, which, that's going to be painful, but I understand. And what although what really makes the whole situation worse, though, is that Luffy is what makes this an even more dire, like Code Red kind of situation, is that Luffy is more or less out of commission. He's used up his dough for his power and can't become Nika again for a good while. It could have been like it could have and it couldn't have come at a worse time, because now it's just going to be a pure scramble to survive long enough for everyone to survive long enough for Luffy to get back in the action. And I really do, and this is one of the interesting things about Luffy's power to me. While I really do appreciate and love the implications of this power, and how they really do emphasize the idea that Luffy might become a little, it also shows that it makes me wonder if Luffy might be becoming a little too reliant on this power, because while obviously there's no guarantee he would have been able to face off against Lucy or Kizaru in Gear 4, at least it's, in fact, I'm almost certain he probably wouldn't have been able to do it. But at least in doing so, he could have at least somewhat saved Gear 5 as a trump card. But, like, it's not like I don't understand either. I can still understand why he had to rely on Gear 5, because he probably wouldn't have been able to hold his own against Kizaru otherwise. But, like, here's, again, this really interesting thing comes in, because even though I understand the circumstances of why he had to use Gear 5, that in itself kind of exposes, I think, one of the biggest problems with Gear 5, which is that it just emphasizes the problem of having to overuse it a lot, and it begs the question, would Gear 5 have been enough with just maybe more training? I guess pseudo spoilers from the manga, but that is a question I'm hoping the current arc of the manga can answer for us by giving us like a mini Straw Hat training arc, because the fact that Luffy does have to rely on Gear 5 so much, it's already showing it's becoming a little bit of a concern, honestly. Like, I know people are probably going to disagree with me on that, but and again, I understand that Gear 5 is much stronger than Gear 4. Gear 4, I don't think would have been enough to face off against Kizaru, but the fact that there is that disparity is a little concerning, is all I'm saying. Now, in saying that, there was one thing that kind of confused the fuck out of me about this episode, and I needed to look it up to confirm it, but apparently the anime's regular schedule is going on break until May 18th, so because of that we're getting one of those recap sessions. But I can't lie, there were bits and pieces from watching that preview where it was saying that Chopper and Carrot were going to narrate Kuma's backstory episodes. At least that's what I thought it was, but yeah, is that we're just going to be waiting a while for the next episode, and that it's going to be like them recapping like what we know so far about Kuma and Bonney. And again, my initial reaction was, what the fuck? But again, then I looked up an anime news article that said, yeah, the anime is going on break, which, hey, it just means more time for them to work on the episode and give us something amazing. So yeah, here's hoping that we get something amazing with this. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Blue Sky, and always Crunchyroll, be sure to notification bell, subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight Bonney, signing off. Later, everyone.